This was so curious. Why did SMU stop coming after Sawyer Robertson and just sit back and let him torch the hell out of him?
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, we'll talk about that here coming up in just a second. Welcome to Locked On SMU and a fresh week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks for spending half an hour or so with me on your Monday. I'm Grayson Singleton, and our episode today is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. Coming up on the show today, we are going to talk some positives from Saturday's loss to Baylor. The playmakers really came to play on Saturday afternoon. And also, there is now way too much pressure on Kevin Jennings and the offense. We'll talk about that to close up shop. But let's go ahead and start with this. Boy, that defense was bad. The defense was terrible. And there was a comment on the instant reaction after the game, which if you haven't viewed it already, go look at it. It's about 20 minutes long. I posted it on Saturday right after the game, instantly reacting to Baylor's 48-45 double overtime win at SMU. But there was a comment on that video that's made me think, what was going on with the strategy from Scott Symons? And Scott Symons is a really good head coach, but I went back and thought about it, and I haven't seen official PFF stuff or like that. Did anybody notice how little SMU blitzed? Go back to Friday and the last episode that I did before the game. And what did I say? If you let Sawyer Robertson just stand on his spot and get comfortable and find his receivers, SMU will lose that game because he is too good of a thrower for you to just let him be comfortable. And I was so shocked that as the game went on, Sawyer Robertson was just doing that. Not forced to move, not uncomfortable. He was just sitting back there and dicing and dicing and dicing. I mean, it was incredible quarterback play to watch. But what was equally as incredible, in the flip sense of the word, was how little SMU came after him. And look, you've got two good edge rushers with Robertson and Smith. Smith was really good at the beginning of the game. He never got a sack. We'll talk about that in a second. But he never got a sack, but he made Sawyer Robertson move during the first half. But Scott Symons, man, and I would need to go back in detail and figure this out. But I don't know if it's just not in Scott Symons' DNA to bring pressure, but they kept dropping, 7, 8 dudes in a coverage and got no pressure, and the dudes were sitting ducks. And I think that's just a wonky strategy defensively when your corners are the weakness of your defense. What can help bad corner play or suspect corner play, what can neutralize that is getting pressure on the quarterback. And SMU was not getting pressure on the quarterback with 3 or 4, so you got to bring extra dudes. So I don't know if that's just we're playing scared, or that's just not in my DNA, or we just made a poor adjustment. Either way you slice it. The fact that SMU did not bring pressure is a problem. I think that's when Scott Symons is going to go back and look at it and say, we probably should have done something a little bit different than that. Because when I thought about that last night, I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, the entirety of the second half, Sawyer Robertson had all the time in the world he needed. There were times where he got 4 or 5 seconds to throw the ball. And when your corner play is as suspect as it is, that is a recipe for immense disaster. Incredible disaster. And it showed. Sawyer Robertson completed 34 of his 50 balls, which I told you this earlier in the week too when Cam Stewart hopped on with us of Locked On Baylor. If Sawyer Robertson throws the ball 48, 50 times, I feel good SMU is going to win that game because I thought SMU could get pressure. Oh boy, they did not. Sawyer Robertson completed 34 or 50 passes, which is a pretty good rate, for 440 yards and 4 touchdowns. You want to know how bad the corners were? Josh Cameron, preseason All Big 12, 9 catches for $151 and 2 touchdowns. Ashton Hawkins, 10 catches for $145. They could not do anything with Ashton Hawkins, and it was obvious. And Kobe Prentice, who I guess they decided to include him in the game plan this week, caught 4 balls for 63 yards and 2 tuds. Every weakness by SMU was exploited. There was a powerful thrower behind center and an array of wide receivers who are excellent going up against SMU cornerbacks who are anything but excellent. And they torched them because they couldn't get a pass rush to be able to help out the cornerback play. And they didn't even try. And look, maybe it has something to do with the fact that your starting 2 inside linebackers were down. If that's the answer, I'm willing to go with that. But considering how aggressive Justin Medlock and Brandon Maizano and the other linebackers are playing downhill, and they showed that against the run, which I thought they were pretty good. As aggressive as they are downhill, send them at the quarterback. Hell, they weren't covering very well in the middle of the field. Try something else. But the whole way that the second half unfolded when it pertains to how Scott Symons chose to play defense and just let Sawyer Robertson stand back there and comfortably pick them apart. How many times did Sawyer Robertson get touched in the second half? Because it's no more than 3. I mean, he did whatever he wanted to do against SMU. As a matter of fact, I mentioned that Isaiah Smith never had a sack, even though he played well in that, especially in that first half. SMU only sacked Sawyer Robertson, who, by the way, is a mobile quarterback, but he's not a quarterback that's going to run away from anybody. SMU only sacked him 1 time. And that dude who had the sack was Ahmad Moses, the safety, who, by the way, I thought he played good. Isaiah Wokobia tackled well, and speaking of tackling well, boy, the defense did not do that as the game went on. It started out really good, but as the game waned, ooh boy. We're going to talk more about the attrition that I think the defense succumbed to in Tuesday's episode. But as the game waned, the tackling subsided for SMU. But the Mustangs didn't get any pass rush. And against a pro-style quarterback like him, who, by the way, name me a better thrower of the football in college football so far this year than Sawyer Robertson. I think that list is very, very small. If you can name dudes who are throwing the ball better than Sawyer Robertson right now, I gotta give him props because he is playing excellent football. He's almost to 1,000 yards passing through 2 weeks. He's been great. But when you're facing a great quarterback and a great thrower of the football who is ungodly accurate, I don't know how many off-target throws he had. But when you are facing a dude whose accuracy is as on point as his is, you have to come after him. You have to make him move. You have to make his feet move. You have to make him aware that you're there. And quite frankly, in the second half, you could have had no pass rush. You may as well have none because Sawyer Robertson was just sitting back there chilling. He looked way too comfortable. And in a game where, number one, you got into a track meet with Baylor, which that was red flag number 1 that I raised last week. You do not want to play in a game in the high 30s and the 40s with Baylor. But they did that. And then they didn't get any pressure. The 2 things that I said, really the 3 things I said could not happen. You could not get into a track meet. You could not let him be comfortable. And the corners have to elevate their play in this game. All 3 things went the wrong direction. And Baylor won the game. We can talk about field goal kicking. We'll talk about that at some point. We can talk about the curious offensive play calling on that last drive before SMU had to go down and try to win the game in regulation. We could talk about all that. But ultimately, the fact that they didn't get pressure and they didn't try to generate even more pressure is concerning. Big takeaway number 1 from the Baylor win over SMU. Coming up next, let's throw some positivity on this because SMU's got an offense. And they've got playmakers, even though Jordan Hudson isn't there. We'll tell you about that on the other side. Keep it here, Locked On SMU. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow with over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has got your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, that tribalism, there's just nothing to it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game you're trying to watch itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. But that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to you, the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is going to be what you pay. My favorite thing about the Game Time app is that I can see what my view is before I even buy the seat. It's the best thing about the app. I know what I'm going to be looking at from the seat, and I can look at that before I buy the ticket. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, welcome back to Locked On SMU. And before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We are growing as a community, so thank you all for being a part of that. But go ahead, subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell so you can get notified anytime we release new content. Be sure to check out the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And hit me up on Twitter at Gray_Singleton2. It's right down there. Okay, some positive from the game on Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. By the way, that game was long. Anybody else notice that? That game was long as hell. It was over 4 hours, if not 4.5 hours. But some positives from the game. SMU can put up points. SMU has an offense. They have an offense that is borderline elite. I'm waiting until they go up against a team with a really good defense to say they are elite, but that is an offense that is really good, borderline elite. Kevin Jennings did one turnover, underthrown ball on a fade ball. Linebacker came out of there with it. Not a big deal. Not a big deal to me. You were going to go there the whole time. It wasn't a bad decision, a bad read or nothing. Just didn't get enough underneath it. Cool with that. But your quarterback threw for 295 yards and 3 touchdowns. You got receivers that are making plays for the quarterbacks. Romello Brinson bailed Kevin Jennings out of the first ball. We all know that. But how about this running game? How about the running game? And it looks like you've got RB1. It looks like TJ Harden, the transfer from UCLA, has emerged as RB1. He's got speed. He's got burst. We all know that he is impossible to tackle. 19 carries, a $115, 3 touchdowns. 6.1 yards per carry. He is impossible to tackle behind the line of scrimmage. And he's always going to finish his runs falling forward. I like TJ Harden a lot. But I'll tell you what, I like Chris Johnson Jr. a lot too. I think he has some serious wheels. Some serious wheels. And I love the play that late in the game, they ran him out of the backfield on the running back wheel and hit him for a big gain. I think those two are the guys you're going to run your offense through. Because this is an offense that is still going to be based on the run, even though they've started out their first 2 games throwing the ball over the top. This is going to be an offense that is based on the run. And how do I know? Kevin Jennings threw the ball 22 times. He was sacked 1 time, so 23 dropbacks. SMU ran the ball 43 times. 19 carries to TJ Harden, 6 carries to Chris Johnson Jr., 13 rushing attempts for Kevin Jennings, 4 to Jermichael Green, and then Derek McFall 1. This is an offense that is going to be based on running the football. And if your offense is going to be based on running the football, this is the offensive line to do it behind because they ran blocked very well. The run blocking, I thought, was very good. And you've got 2 running backs that can handle business. It's unfortunate, and I guess I was dead wrong on this one, but Derek McFall has seemed to be the odd man out of this whole conversation. So, chalk that one in the L column for me. But the 2 dudes that are running the ball, those are going to be both dudes that'll have you in the 4 yards plus per carry. And that's where you want to be. I remember Mike Gundy, when I was a student in Oklahoma State, would always say, if we can run for 4 yards a carry, we're going to be in good shape. And he's right. Not right about a whole lot this day and age, but he's right about that. If you can run the ball for 4 yards a carry over the course of a game, you're going to be in really good shape. You run it for 5 yards a carry, you're a very dangerous offense. And SMU is borderline that. The receivers are pretty good too. And that was obviously going to be a position of concern with Jordan Hudson out for the foreseeable future. And if you missed it, he was in a sling on Saturday morning. But I thought Romello Brinson is really good. Jalen Cooper is comfortable. Jalen Cooper is comfortable and confident. And that's really good to see from a true freshman. 2 catches, 89 yards, and another long touchdown. And then when you sprinkle in Hibner and RJ Maryland, Carterius Brown had a catch. You don't see receivers out there, however old or young they might be, whatever their skill set is, that don't belong. You don't see a liability for the receiving corps. They haven't dropped a pass yet. Not that I can recall. But they're making plays for their quarterback. Here is where they fell short late in the game. There were times where they didn't get open. Against a Baylor secondary that's fine, but there were times that they didn't get open. And I think that's where you miss Jordan Hudson, having that other guy that can get open. But they make plays after the catch. They come back to the ball and present themselves to the quarterback. And they're very good in the scramble drill. And the tight ends, wide receivers, running backs are good route runners. So Kevin Jennings always has a place to put the ball. And the playmakers for this team is what's going to make this offense elite. Because in this game today, I know Baylor was the explosive, sexy thing. Baylor's was the one that put up all the fireworks. But SMU gained 458 yards of total offense. It's a really good offensive output. That is really good offensive output. Now, it's kind of dwarfed by the 601 that Baylor put up. Bet you didn't know that one. But in terms of just talking about your offense taking care of its business, A+. That is an A+ day. And when Jordan Hudson comes back, it's only going to get better. Now, what else from the offense is going to hold it back? The pass pro still needs to be a little bit better. I would love to see, against a marquee ACC team, Kevin Jennings be able to have 3-4 seconds to comfortably drop back and deliver the football. Anything after that's not really on your offensive line. Either the quarterback held the ball too long or the receivers aren't getting open. But if the offensive line can improve, and I thought the pass protection was better. I thought it was better. Wasn't fantastic, but it was better. I feel better about it today than I did last week. But if the offensive line can hold up in pass pro, man, these receivers can do anything with any secondary they're playing against. And Miami's secondary looks really good. Clemson's secondary, especially led by Avion Terrell, is going to be pretty solid too. But this offense is going to have to put up points because the pass defense just has a way to go. That's just the reality of the situation. They're going to have to put up points, and with the playmakers that they have and what they showed on Saturday morning into the afternoon, they can do just that. So I still feel good based on that. I still feel good about where this SMU team can be. Rhett Lashley and Casey Wood's offense is going to still be pretty good. I still believe in that. But they're going to be under a lot of pressure. And speaking of being under a lot of pressure, we'll talk about that to close up the show here on Locked On SMU. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yep, which hat? For me, it would be hats from the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. Well, that was before I was born. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use code LOCKEDON, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. That's thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code LOCKEDON for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. All right, let's finish it up talking about going forward in the rest of the season. And especially, this is going to be pertinent for the TCU game, because Josh Hoover and that TCU offense, they got some dudes, they got some players, and Josh Hoover can sling it. Now, I don't think Josh Hoover is the same quality quarterback that Sawyer Robertson is, but Josh Hoover can throw the football. So let's talk about that. If the defense even resembles, and I'm specifically talking about the pass defense here, if the pass defense even resembles what it looked like on Saturday, the offense is going to be under immense pressure to score touchdowns, because they're just going to have to score touchdowns to keep up. Because ultimately what's going to happen is, if people know that your pass defense is as suspect as it looked on Saturday, if that's not just a one-off, teams will abandon the run game. And by the way, credit Baylor for not doing what it did against Auburn. They still mixed in the run game, but they knew, Jake Spavital and Sawyer Robertson knew, that if we need to go to the air, we're going to be just fine. But because of that elongates the game, it puts your defense on the field more, and it allows the other team's quarterback to just whoop, 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 touchdowns. And if that's going to be the case, that's going to put immense pressure on the offense to match touchdown for touchdown. Especially, and this is where this dude comes in, if Colin Rogers looks like he did in yesterday's game, because he couldn't kick the ball straight. So now all of a sudden, remember going back to the summer, I talked about how Colin Rogers, takes pressure off of the offense because of how big his leg is. Because now all of a sudden, instead of having to get way deep into opponent territory, you can get to the 35, 52-yard field goal. Colin Rogers could still knock it through and you get 3 points. It takes pressure off of your offense to not have to matriculate the ball down the field every single time. Well, if he's going to look like that too, and teams are throwing the ball on you, what choice does the offense have? They have to go score touchdowns 90% of the time. And the way that Baylor game played out on Saturday is wildly concerning, because they've got to fix stuff at corner, and then they've got to be able, Colin Rogers is going to have a very short memory. He's going to have to flush this real fast. And I think the best course of action for him is if SMU kind of bogs down in the high red area a couple of times against Missouri State, and he's got to kick some 40-yard field goals. Hopefully he makes it. That might be the best course of action for SMU, because he's got to get his confidence back and get it back real fast. Because after this next week's game against Missouri State, you have one more game before Syracuse comes to town and conference play begins. You got one. So the way that game shook out, it just puts way too much pressure on Kevin Jennings and the offense. Now, thankfully, because the offensive line is sturdy and the running game is so good, you still have the ability, as long as you're down one score, maybe 10 points, to be able to be multidimensional and be able to run the ball, throw the ball, and do both with pretty good success because of the ingredients that you have. But that's just a lot of pressure on one particular side of the ball if this is going to be the recipe for how every single game goes. And that's why it is imperative that one of two things happen. Either the cornerbacks get their act together, Deuce Harmon, Speedy Nettles, the nickel position, which was just awful, be it Lamadrick Spencer, Jaden Milner-Jones, who was there, Davis Robertson, who was playing corner at times, just awful. It was bad. It was really bad, especially that nickel position. It's imperative that either they get their act together or Scott Symons gets creative with how he brings pressure to try to offset the lack of corner production. One of those two things has to happen. And if not, you're going to see a lot more games like this. You're going to see a lot more games in the mid to high 30s, creeping into the 40s. And Kevin Jennings is going to have to go out there and throw the ball 35, 40 times, which, based on how SMU's offense is looking and how they're calling it, is not what they want to do. But if your defense and your special teams is going to necessitate that, it may be your only recourse for the time being. But going forward, cornerback room has to be better. Colin Rogers is the one I'm most confident that game was a one-off. I am willing to say that. One of the field goals he missed was a 57-yard field goal at the end of regulation. The one that he missed in overtime is so unlike him. I mean, this is a preseason all-ACC kicker. The one he missed in overtime, I think, is so unlike him. And the one that I think he missed so badly in regulation, where he just hooked it straight dead to the left, I think is so unlike him. So I'm more confident that gets fixed. The corner play, everybody said, if you looked around what national people were saying coming into the season, corner play was going to be a major issue. And it has been. That's the one I'm not so confident gets fixed. It can be helped. It can be better. But will it ever be good? I don't know. But it can be helped if you get creative with how you bring pressure. So if you don't want to put immense ultimate pressure on your offense to go down and score touchdowns, two things have to happen. Colin Rogers just flushes that performance and makes it a one-off. I think that can happen. But Scott Symons has to be better on defensive play calling, especially with bringing pressure on quarterbacks. Thanks so much for watching this Monday edition of Locked On SMU. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, be sure that you are on the lookout for Locked On's College Football Kickoff. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll from Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation along with two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, and it's only on Fire TV. We will talk to you tomorrow for a Tuesday edition of Locked On SMU. Take it easy, everybody.